York, violin and chord, that's the way you spell New York. We'll have a good time, baby. I don't mean maybe, that's in good old New York. Yes, in good old New York. Well, in good old New York.
Well, here we are at Inside New York with Stu Wechsler, and we're going to interview Helen Butleroff, learn a little bit about her new play, which we hope is a hit, Marty and Company, which
Sure
is one of the preeminent publicists in the theatrical field, was good enough to arrange for me to see the opening night of the show, and it was one of those marvelous experiences which was different, even for New York, which has a little bit of everything for everybody, and here's a show for pet lovers.
That's right.
And I would say that it probably is mostly for pet lovers, in that people who don't like pets, I don't think they're going to like this show that much, but most of us are pet lovers.
That's right.
And I don't want to know people if they're not pet lovers for the most part anyway. But it's playing at Theater East off Broadway, and it's something unique, as are many of the things we cover here in New York. It's a show, and the show is made up of a large number of special musical numbers done by different writers, and there were some live pets in the show. The Butleroff home also is outside with some pets and different pets. The pets in the show or outside in the lobby can be adopted. And I understand from Helen that after the first performance the following day, 18 pets were adopted at the Butleroff home.
That's right.
Those of you who have watched my show before know that I'm a pet lover, and perhaps you've seen Pepsi-Cola. At the conclusion of this this review, we're going to introduce Pepsi-Cola to you again. He's waiting impatiently outside for his own interview while...
His own time in the sun.
His own time in the sun, yes. And as is Helen. And without further ado, why don't we introduce to you Helen Butleroff, who
Hi.
conceived of this marvelous little show, Pets,
Thank you.
which is both unique and enjoyable. And
Thank
one
you.
of the most enjoyable things about it was that I enjoyed was the theater it was in. I don't know whether you picked that, but aside from the other joys you can of the show, you can sit at a table, or you do sit at a
That's
table.
right.
You get a complimentary drink,
That's
and you can
right.
also order extra drinks if you want to pay for them.
That's right.
And it
And have
was
little
very-
snackalas if you want little snackalas.
It was very comfortable, a very
Thank
comfortable,
you.
joyous evening.
And intimate too. You really feel warm
Joyous
with the performance.
and intimate, yes, and with also other people at the other tables.
Yes,
you know,
this
you
is
can
true.
chat
Becomes
it
a
up
big
little
family,
bit.
all about everybody giving their pet story.
So, Helen, why don't you tell us a little bit about how and why you can see pets?
Well, I've been in theater for many years as a director, choreographer, and I thought finally maybe I could combine the two loves of my life, and one of them has always been animals and helping strays. I mean, much to my pocketbook over the years, boarding animals, finding them, rounding them up in the burrows. And I finally thought maybe I put a show together that deals with the compassionate treatment of animals, that when people leave they're entertained, but they come out feeling really good about animals. And also, why not bring on a cat and a dog from a local humane society and have them up for adoption? Then the next day people can call, the animals can be screened, I mean the people can be screened very carefully, and then the animals can get adopted. And as you said this weekend, when I called today the Butleroff, they said 18 people that had seen the show went down and adopted animals. And to me that was like, I mean, I'm so happy the show's going well, but I'm also delighted that the animals are getting adopted.
Well, I've talked about the Butleroff home. Pepsi-Cola, my own dog, was adopted at the Butleroff home.
That's right, you said.
And Duchess, my prior dog, was adopted at the Butleroff home.
That's wonderful.
And I'm very proud of the fact that I passed their interview, because they won't
Oh,
give anyone and
they
everyone
sure won't.
a dog.
They're very careful, which is
And,
good.
yes, they called me several days after I adopted the dog
how it
to
was
check
doing?
to see how I was doing and how the dog was doing.
That's great. That's it's a good
It's a
organization. and
marvelous organization,
I'm
yes.
very, very privileged to be part of it.
And those of you who don't know, the Butleroff home does not do away with animals. They
That's
keep
right.
an animal until it's adopted.
That's right. That's why they have limited, they have the beds and the little, facilities, and they just take the amount that they can take it every time, and then once they,
Also, for those of you who don't know, there's a Bidewee home on East, I think it's
38th
East 38th Street.
38th Street between First and the river.
And why don't you just go down there and take a look at
That's
what
right.
they have.
Wonderful.
There are a lot of wonderful animals there waiting for your love, and you'll probably fall in love with one of them. They'll certainly fall in love with you. They fall in love very easily, and you'll bond together and have a companion for a long, long time. And you'll find it's a companion that doesn't talk back, and you
That's
can
right.
train unlike
Loyal
your
always.
unlike your spouse or
That's right.
or louse or significant other,
That's
whoever
right.
it is. That people are hard to train.
That's right.
But animals
and maybe shouldn't be, but animals
animals
are
are not.
automatically there just to love you, and you're right. They should definitely go down and take a look at what Bidewee has to offer.
One of the things, Helen, to digress a moment, which was nice to hear, and nice for a show like this, which talks a lot about New York and has a special New York connection, is that you, like myself, are a native New Yorker.
You bet.
Born and bred and raised, and
Which is uncommon in theater. Most people say to me, "Where do you come from? Are you from Ohio?" And I go, "No, I'm from New York City. I was born and bred here." But that I was born at 103rd Street on the west side for the first 9 years, then East 77th Street till I grew up and got married, and went to PS 158, Wagner Junior High School, Julia Richmond High School, all the things that most New Yorkers know about, and then of course to college, to Queens College, and then to Hunter College for graduate studies. So all the way through in the public school system, and it was great.
your parents were in show business too,
They
weren't
were,
they?
my mom, Helen Butleroff, also same namesake, and my dad, Boris, who we call the Mad Russian, met on Broadway in a show called Do Barry Was a Lady, and then they did By Jupiter, and then the war came, and my dad was drafted. But after the war, my mom opened a studio in New York that she had for 37 years. And a lot of people, when they pass the marquee and stuff, they think it's my mom, and they say, "Oh, my dancing school teacher, my dancing school teacher." So it's just great that my mother's terrific. She looks 10 years old. She looks 30 years old. She's just great. But that her all her work that she did with people lives on, because she made such a contribution to so many young students in the city.
And she contributed a little bit to you too.
I would say, like, who taught her everything she knows? You bet.
When did you start your theatrical career?
At 3. I was on a show called The Children's Hour that Ed Hurley had. He was the host. It was Horn and Hardart were our sponsors. The Days of the Automat, can you believe, was live television, Channel 4. And I was on that for many years. And then I, at 17, worked for Guy Lombardo and June Taylor out at Jones Beach. And I did Around the World in 80 Days and Mardi Gras. So I was 17 when I got my equity card, which was great. I thought, boy, this is so easy. Ha! We know the easy show business is. But eventually, as I told you before, I was in Mac and Mabel on Broadway, became dance captain, and that opened a whole new line of choreography and directing, and that's how I've progressed over the years with a lot of stuff.
Mac and Mabel, Jerry Herman.
Jerry
wrote that,
Herman
or-
and Michael Stewart wrote the book, and it was with Bernadette Peters and Robert Preston, both very, very nice people, and a pleasure to work with, and obviously extremely talented people too.
Amazingly talented. Little did I know when Jerry Herman, who I went to summer
That's
camp
right,
with,
you were saying.
directed me in my one and only theatrical appearance as Will Parker.
I could
in
see you as Will
Oklahoma.
Parker, though. Definitely.
Well, there wasn't too much choice. The casting was a little bit less than it would have been on Broadway, I think.
Somehow, probably, but maybe still good.
Yeah, we were
You
both
never
16
know.
at that time.
That's right. He's a
And
lovely
he's had
guy.
a marvelous career,
Oh.
and always was a lovely
So he
guy.
should.
Yeah.
He touches on the heartstrings of people.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you developed
together?
this with it, how
Yeah.
you got it together. It's a little unusual to have a lot of different writers.
Right. Well,
tunes.
2.5 years ago, I decided I wanted to do a show about the relationship of people and their pets. And I started calling up, like, the Dramatists Guild, friends of mine, a wonderful man named Jay Harnick, who works for an organization, who runs an organization called Theater Works that does shows for children, etc. And got all these resumes and interviewed people. And then we started collaborating, and about 9 months later, I put a showcase production of this at the Judith Anderson, which got rave reviews. And then believe it or not, got involved with another show about contemporary Jewish life in America called That's Life. I put that show together, conceived it, directed it, choreographed it, got rave reviews, ran for a year, and now when that closed, I decided to bring Pets to commercial production, and that's how this all happened. So it's basically a lot of the same writers as that did That's Life. So we're hoping that Pets will have as long a run as That's Life did.
Well, I hope so. Let's show your
them.
poster here.
Oh, yes. And this
we
is
can
my
talk
dog,
about that a
Cocoa
little
Puff.
bit.
This is definitely my dog, who's the best dog in the world. As you all know, all your dogs are the best dog in the world, but this is the best dog in the world. And her name is Cocoa Puff, and she was rescued from the pound. This is not my cat, Jack. This is another cat, because Jack's all black, and he didn't go good against the background for flyers. But my cat, Jack, was also rescued from the island of St. Croix. A little tiny kitten. We got him, the vet and everything let me get him through, and he's a wonderful puss. And they love each other.
The show is playing at Theater East,
Yes.
which is between 2nd and 3rd Avenue and
60th Street. Right.
60th Street. If you have an evening where you'd like something light and fun, you want to see a very, very talented cast, some marvelous singing and dancing, and
That's right.
very pleasant satires, and yet not have the formality of a theater, of a regular kind of theater.
Stuffy.
This is a nice place to stop and have a drink and have
Be
a
in
laugh.
air conditioning and
see some
enjoy wonderful talents.
talented
Right.
young actors.
Right.
There's a marvelous number that brought down the house on opening night
Which one?
called I Walk the Dogs.
I Walk the Dogs. Yes, it's about a Romanian immigrant dog walker who comes and she's a cab driver, and she can't make it as a cab driver because she can't speak the language. So she decides to deal with clients who are not fussy about her dialect and their dogs, obviously. And she's a very talented girl that does it, Jennifer Samard. Our finale of Act 1, if you want to hone in on this, is a pic. Well, it's a Sox look-alike, but the name of the number is called First Cat, and it's about Sox Clinton, and it's a big rock and roll number. And this is a little Sox look-alike, so we're having a big campaign to re-elect Sox.
Well, I know there are a lot of Americans who would probably prefer to vote for Sox.
Well, this is true.
Some
We're
of the
not.
other
We're
candidates.
apolitical. We're not on either side. We're for Sox.
But I hope you'll get a chance to see this show, and I hope you'll get a chance to get down to the Bidewee home and try adopting a dog. There's one other marvelous number that I want to talk about a little bit in the
Yay.
show about it's about a lizard.
Yes.
An iguana.
That's
to
right,
be
an
exact.
iguana.
The Night
Right.
of the Iguana.
The Night of the Iguana.
And that was my second favorite number in the show. Maybe my first. It's kind of a tie. And who was the gentleman who played the iguana?
Christopher Scott, a brilliantly talented actor, and with the singer-dancer, but also with a great sense for comedy and satire. I mean, he plays an Argentinian lovesick lizard, iguana that's looking for his Nina in Argentina.
Very handsome young
He's in a
actor
flamenco dancer.
who sings and dances and obviously has comedic talents
Yes.
and satirical talents. And he just knocked me over with that number.
Well, I'm going to tell him.
And well, maybe he'll be able to see it, so we'll do
Yes,
show him that
definitely.
You're not kidding.
That's right.
It was
Here he
a
is.
beautifully written and conceived number.
No, thank you.
And I think I hear...
I hear Pepsi Cola wanting to. Pepsi Cola wants to come in.
With this interview, I want to do my thing, too. Take it easy, Pepsi. We'll be with you in a little while.
I think she hears we're getting excited about something.
This is a picture of the very talented cast. I was going to say talented young cast, but
Yeah, they are.
I would say it's very talented because one of the performers is not especially young. I certainly wouldn't say terribly old.
She's just beautiful.
Menage Certain.
That's right.
I think that's
Around-
a line from one of her
Younger than I.
numbers. And what is her name again?
Barbara Broughton. She's wonderful. She does a lot of different things, but in Act 2 she does a wonderful song about the loss of your pet. A beautiful ballad called If You Can Stay.
And she does a monologue.
Monologues
in connection
about
with
it, that build up
which
to it.
shows that she has extraordinary talent as an actress.
She
I
sure
was
does.
Very impressed by
So much.
her talents and her delivery. And she also sings very well, as does everyone.
That's right.
Everyone in the cast. They all look like they're having a good time.
We're just beginning to now. You know, once you get past opening night, then you can relax and enjoy the part.
Well, Helen, it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks so
And
much for coming to see the show.
I
too.
hope you'll come back again another time, either to tell us how things are going with this show.
How many more animals we got adopted,
How many
too.
more animals we have adopted, yes. And I wish I had seen your prior show. That sounds like
Well,
very
we're bringing it back to New York for some performance things, and we're going to be on tour, and I'll let you know where we are if you're anywhere near.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down.
Good old New York, it's never down. We'll have a good time. Love me and the world is mine. Knife and fork, bottle in the cork. That's the way you spell New York. I will be there in my easy chair. We'll have a good time, baby. I don't mean maybe. That's it, good old New York.
This is Stu Wechsler, Inside New York, and I want to talk to you now about a portion of the show which may become a regular portion. It's called Stu Wechsler's Pet Peeves, and I think it's going to be some of your pet peeves as well. I'm going to try to do this with another segment on the scams and frauds that go on and that New Yorkers are subject to more than most. The three-card Montes, the fraudulent schemes that we all are subjected to in this city. Because of its anonymity, you can get away with an awful lot in a big city like this that you can't otherwise. Now let's talk about one of my pet peeves. The pet peeve is this outrageous condition which exists at the Motor Vehicle Bureau, where when you want to renew your license, you have to give a day of your life, wait in line, and get to the end of the line if you're lucky. In this day and age, where there's electronic banking, where you can, I'd hold up my press card if I have it. You can get a press card with your picture on it without having to go anywhere or do anything. You can do it by the mail. In this computer age, here we are, all of us, and all of our time is important, waiting either in the bitter cold or in hot, sweaty days on unnecessary lines to renew our licenses, to get forms, to pay tickets. When are the people going to revolt against this kind of government? This is the reason why you get so many of the nuts throughout the United States rebelling against the government, because it seems to be of a government more for bureaucracy than for the people. It's time that this scam and fraud on the people is cleaned up. And let's make sure in the next political campaign that we see that it is organized to get rid of this outrage, this imposition on our lives and on our times. There's no reason why people have to wait on those lines. Anything can be done by mail, by fax, by telephone, and by computer. Let's throw those politicians out of office who don't get it changed. If you write your representative, if you deal with anyone connected with the State Motor Vehicle Bureau, well, tell them about it. Tell them about this show. I hope somebody at the Motor Vehicle Bureau or some politician is going to realize if you keep up this kind of poor government that is going to backfire, and backfire bad, you'll be thrown out of office where you belong. This is Inside New York with Stu Wechsler. We're back in Inside New York with Stu Wechsler, and this is Stu Wechsler, your host, and we're here with one of the more interesting locals. It's a little bit odd to call someone from New York a local, but that's what we have here, a pure local bred product of our environment and this very special city and a very special form of art which developed in this city. We're here with a man who was known, I don't know whether he still is, but we'll hear that from him, as Pistol One in the graffiti art movement. A very, very unique movement, very much like rap music is a unique movement in music. Graffiti art is a special movement in art that developed in New York and has caught on the way jazz has in Europe, maybe even more than it has in its native country. Most of the writers, they're referred to often as writers rather than artists, and really the graffiti writers are more artists than writers, I think, but maybe
Absolutely.
we'll discuss that a little bit with Pistol One. And we're here with Laurie, and is it okay if we call you Pistol One, Laurie? or would you prefer a different?
You can call
change
me
from
by
that?
my real name, Lonnie Heller.
Lonnie Heller.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I never did know your last name, although I was lucky enough to sample some
Yeah.
of Lonnie's cuisine. And
That's right. We had a nice little
doesn't sound
dinner
like
the
an
other night.
Italian name from the food we ate. I thought it was going to be
No.
Lonnie Lasagna or something
There you go.
like that, but instead it's Lonnie Heller.
It's actually
And,
Russian Polish, but it is a German name.
Mhm.
But that's the origin of my family. And
Well, Lonnie, tell me what graffiti art is and how you saw it developing. You're one of the pioneers, one of the historical greats in graffiti art. There have been a number of books written about it, and I know you showed me some particular area where you became especially known in graffiti art. But where did it develop, and how is it that someone, Lonnie Heller, ends up with the name Pistol One and is riding away on subways and daring arrest and imprisonment?
yeah.
For what? For why?
You did your homework. You got it. You really know the scene there. Well,
And when did it start?
graffiti has been around since caveman era. I mean, humans were writing on cave walls as a form of expression. Even back then, graffiti was a form of expression, mostly in magic marker and writing all throughout the 20s and 30s. I think there was a famous guy named Leroy was here, or Gilroy was here. That was a big war thing.
Kilroy.
Kilroy
was
there
here.
you go.
Yes.
See?
Kilroy
He was one of
wrote
the
all
original
over-
writers. I
all
don't think he
over
had a
Europe.
number.
Kilroy
though.
was here.
I don't know if it was Kilroy 1 or 2 or no. It was just Kilroy. But as
Well, when
far
did
as
people
the
start writing on New
as
York
far
City
as the
subways?
genre of subway graffiti, that kind of exploded in the very early 70s, like 70, 71, 72. I don't know what ignited the flame, but around that time,
What ignited your flame?
good question. I was accepted to the High School of Art and Design. I always had art talent, and it was a way of escaping my neighborhood in Brooklyn. I came from Bensonhurst, and it was just, for some reason, I didn't feel I fit in there. I didn't belong there, and I really needed to get away from there. And the thought of going to a high school in Manhattan was very intriguing, and not only that, it was just an all-art school. And it had people from all over the boroughs coming there. You had to take a test to be accepted. And art and design was one of the primary schools that spawned the subway graffiti movement. A lot of great writers came from there. And I had to take the train into school every day. So every day I rode the train, I would see these wonderful pieces go by. And I started doodling in a notebook with colored markers. And as I went through my freshman year of high school, I started meeting some of the writers there. And I got really fascinated by it and started doing it. I just
What if
started totally getting into it.
Did anyone put art on the subway trains, which was not writing, which was just graphic and...
Yes, we were. A lot of the graffiti was nonsense and kind of ugly and just...
But I mean, it wasn't words.
People
Suppose
doing
someone
it,
put a...
symbols, all kinds of... A lot of it was words, but it was trying to be done in writing that only they knew how to read it. And it looked like
I
a
was trying
graphic
get
to
at, if
everyone
someone
else.
did a picture of a tree, for example,
Right.
did anyone do just some kind of pictorial representation, which couldn't be classified
Later
as
on,
writing?
after us, late 70s, early 80s, writers started using cartoon characters, faces, scenery, rocket ships,
In the early days,
backgrounds.
it was all words.
In the early days, it was our names. We used our names as the point of communication, and from that we wrote them in our own style. Every writer had his own unique way of writing his name and developed his own
It's interesting that you were
typography.
referred to as writers, even though the only word you wrote was your own name.
Right, that's true. There were some people that wrote messages, and
Oh,
they were
messages.
into... There was a guy named Flint who wrote a lot of messages, mostly for women. Flint for ladies only, for those who dare. He had a bunch of sayings, but he never did it big on the subways.
Were
He would
those-
always do it magic marker.
But there those who became famous because of the content of their writing rather than the artistic merit of the writing?
No, we all became famous from the typography of our writing.
We almost artistic typographers. It wasn't really a matter
absolutely.
of writing, and it wasn't exactly...
No, we weren't
traditional
writers.
art.
When you say writers, people that write thoughts and sayings and prose and poetry, no, we were not that at all. We both basically wrote our names, but we created type forms that were highly recognized as original art, and typographers all over the world praised us
This
for
is
our
unique,
design.
unique to New York, isn't it? This particular form of graffiti.
It totally
Subway
emanated in New
graffiti
York
emanated
and
here.
quickly caught on in
And
Philadelphia and Chicago.
Let me tell you a little story about graffiti and graffiti that I was familiar with before
Okay.
you were doing the graffiti art.
Mhm.
There was a man I met at several different parties, and he carried with him some books on graffiti, which he had collected in men's rooms, and perhaps a few ladies' rooms as well. But that particular art was not known for its artistic merit. It was purely what was said. There's one that I still remember in his book where he wrote, it wasn't that he who wrote it, but he had copied this down and published it in a book. God is dead, Nietzsche. Nietzsche is dead, God. Not the usual type of graffiti you find, but he found some wonderful gems in men's and ladies' restrooms, mostly men's rooms. And
If you're lucky enough to
sexual.
find little one-of-a-kind novelties like that, that's great. What made us unique is that we were all over the place. We were on every subway line, every train. I mean, you couldn't get on a subway without seeing our names going by on all these trains.
Now, wasn't there a campaign to put people like you in jail?
There certainly was. You see, we never thought at the time, we were teenagers in high school, we never thought or viewed it as vandalism. We never consciously did it to get back at society or rebel. Maybe some did, but we and the people I wrote with really believed we were doing art. We were so passionate about it that we even had hangouts called Writers' Corners, where groups of us would gather just to admire our work and share techniques and ideas with
But
each
you
other.
didn't share this with other so-called writers. They didn't have the right word for you fellas. You were graffiti writers.
Well, we were graffiti artists.
Graffiti artists.
We were
You
artists.
gathered in your own place, not with other...
No, just graffiti. And Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn was the train, because all the different trains emerged at the same place.
Any of you fellas go to jail?
A couple of people did go to jail, not for a long time, and a couple even got killed in the subways by trains that they didn't see coming. And
How did you manage to get to put the art on the subways? You couldn't do it while the subway was moving. And
Well, they have, express trains that run certain hours of the day, and at nighttime these trains don't run, so they lay them up in the middle track in between stations. And every few stations would have trains laid up there. And late at night, you'd get off the train station, wait for the train to leave, and go down into the tunnel.
Good old New York, it's never down. We'll have a good time. Love me and the world is mine. Knife and fork, bottle in the cork. That's the way you spell New York.